Did you know that one of the most confidently believed geography facts in America is completely, demonstrably, and statistically wrong? And that almost everyone, from your smartest friends to TV weather anchors, repeats it without question every single day? Did you know that the city almost every American would name as the rainiest in the country doesn't even crack the top 30 when you measure it by actual rainfall, and that it receives less rain every year than New York City, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta? Did you know that the real rainiest city in America is not in the Pacific Northwest, not in the Northeast, and not anywhere most people would ever guess? And that 8 of the top 10 rainiest cities in the entire country are clustered in one specific region that almost never gets mentioned in this conversation? Did you know that the reason one city got this reputation has almost nothing to do with how much it actually rains, and everything to do with music, movies, pop culture, and one very specific quirk of how rain falls that tricks people into feeling wet even when barely any water is coming down? Well, the city everyone thinks is the rainiest is Seattle, Washington, and the city that actually holds that title by a significant margin is Mobile, Alabama. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly how this myth started, why it stuck, what the real data says, and what the geography behind all of it reveals about the way weather actually works in America. Because this story is a lot bigger than just rainfall numbers. Let's get into it. Let's start by laying out the numbers, because when you see them side by side, the myth falls apart almost immediately. Seattle receives an average of 39.3 inches of rain per year. That's it, 39 inches. The national average for a major American city is around 36 inches, meaning Seattle is barely above average. It is not a record breaker. It is not an outlier. It is a slightly wetter than average American city that somehow became the symbol of American rain. Now let's compare that to some cities most people would never think to put in the same category. New York City, 46 inches per year. Miami, Florida, 62 inches per year. New Orleans, Louisiana, 64 inches per year. Houston, Texas, 49 inches per year. Nashville, Tennessee, 56 inches per year. Atlanta, Georgia, 50 inches per year. Washington, D.C., 40 inches per year. Every single one of those cities gets more rain than Seattle. Some of them, Miami, New Orleans, get nearly double. And yet nobody calls New York a rain city. Nobody makes movies set against the endless downpours of Atlanta. Nobody uses Nashville weather as a metaphor for gloom and melancholy. Among the nation's 50 largest cities, Seattle ranks 32nd for total annual precipitation. 32nd. It is not in the top half, not even close to the top. Yet it carries a reputation for rain that cities genuinely drowning in rainfall, Mobile, Pensacola, Baton Rouge, will never have. So how did this happen? How did a city with perfectly average rainfall become America's symbol of endless wet weather? The answer is one of the most interesting perception stories in American geography. Here's the key to understanding the Seattle myth. The question is not how much it rains in Seattle. The question is how it rains. Seattle sits in a very specific geographic position. To its west, the Pacific Ocean stretches uninterrupted to Asia, generating a constant flow of moist Pacific air moving eastward. That moisture hits the Pacific coast and rises. But before it gets to Seattle, it encounters the Olympic Peninsula, a wall of mountains that catches a huge portion of that moisture before it even reaches the city. What's left when the air reaches Seattle is not a heavy tropical downpour. It is a light, persistent, low-intensity drizzle that can fall for days, sometimes weeks at a time, without ever producing significant rainfall by volume. You can walk outside in Seattle and feel like it's raining. Your jacket gets damp, your hair gets wet. Everything has that gray, overcast feel. And yet by the end of the day, barely half an inch of water has fallen from the sky. Seattle averages around 150 to 156 days per year with measurable precipitation. That means rain, by some measure, falls on more than 4 months out of the year. By number of rainy days, Seattle is genuinely near the top of major American cities, but the rain that falls on those 150-plus days is frequently so light that it barely registers in total volume. Compare that to a city like Miami. Miami gets around 141 rainy days per year, fewer than Seattle. But when it rains in Miami, it really rains. Afternoon thunderstorms drop an inch of rain in an hour. Tropical systems dump days' worth of water overnight. The rain is violent, dramatic, and heavy, and then the sun comes back out. Seattle's rain doesn't make for dramatic weather. It makes for relentlessly gray, endlessly damp, emotionally exhausting weather that makes people feel soaked even when they aren't. And that feeling, more than any rainfall statistic, is what built the reputation. But feeling is not the same as fact. And the fact is that the Gulf Coast of America is getting absolutely soaked compared to Seattle. It just does it loudly, quickly, and with sunshine on either side. The geography explains why Seattle feels rainier than it is. But geography alone doesn't explain how the myth became this dominant, this universal, this unquestioned. For that, you have to look at culture. The story starts in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when Seattle's music scene exploded onto the global stage. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. The grunge movement didn't just produce great music. It produced an entire aesthetic mythology around Seattle. And central to that mythology was the weather. Grunge was dark, brooding, emotionally raw, and sonically heavy. And the rain fit that. Musicians and journalists describing Seattle leaned into the gray skies and constant drizzle as part of what made the city feel like a place where that music made sense. Rolling Stone pieces described the city's musty garages and rainy streets. Music videos featured overcast Pacific Northwest skies. The image of Seattle as a rain-soaked haven for introspective outsiders went global almost overnight. Then came the movies and television. Cameron Crowe's 1992 film Singles, set in Seattle's music scene, portrayed the city as exactly that, a rainy, coffee-fueled, romantically melancholy place. Sleepless in Seattle in 1993 wrapped the city in a dreamy, perpetually overcast glow that made the rain feel poetic rather than miserable. The TV series Frasier, which ran from 1993 to 2004, set 11 seasons of comedy against Seattle's rainy backdrop, making jokes about the weather a recurring part of the show's identity for an entire decade. Then came the internet age, where the myth became self-reinforcing. Every listicle about rainy cities put Seattle at the top. Every travel piece about the Pacific Northwest mentioned the endless rain. Every meme about gloomy weather featured the Space Needle. The myth replicated itself millions of times across social media until it became, for most people, simply an assumed fact. Something so obvious it didn't need to be checked. And nobody checked. Because why would you? Everybody knows Seattle is the rainiest city in America. Everybody knows it, except it isn't. So if not Seattle, then where? Meet Mobile, Alabama. Mobile sits on the northern shore of Mobile Bay, right at the point where it meets the Gulf of Mexico. It is a city of about 190,000 people, the third largest city in Alabama, with a history stretching back over 300 years, making it one of the oldest cities in the entire country. And it receives, on average, 67 inches of rain per year. That is nearly double Seattle's annual total. That is 5.5 feet of water falling from the sky, every single year, without fail. And Mobile is not alone. 8 of the 10 rainiest cities in the continental United States are located along the Gulf Coast, a stretch of coastline running from Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Pensacola, Florida, 65 inches. New Orleans, Louisiana, 64 inches. West Palm Beach, Florida, 63 inches. Lafayette and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, both around 62 inches. Miami, Florida, 62 inches. Port Arthur, Texas, 61 inches. The Pacific Northwest doesn't appear on this list until Olympia, Washington, Seattle's neighbor to the south, shows up at number 24. Seattle itself doesn't crack the top 30. So what is happening in Mobile and along the Gulf Coast that produces this volume of rain? The answer is geography. Specifically, the geography of the Gulf of Mexico itself. The Gulf of Mexico is a warm, shallow, semi-enclosed body of water that acts like a natural moisture factory. Its surface waters stay warm year-round, often reaching 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit in summer. And that warmth constantly evaporates water into the air above it. That water vapor rises, moves northward, and when it hits the warm, humid air already sitting over the Gulf Coast, it condenses and falls as rain, frequently, violently, and in enormous quantities. Mobile sits at the northern end of this moisture pipeline. The city gets hit by Gulf-fueled thunderstorms through the spring and summer, drenched by tropical systems and hurricane remnants in the fall, and soaked by frontal rain during mild winters. There's almost no dry season. The rain comes from multiple directions, through multiple mechanisms, for essentially the entire year. And then there's hurricane season. Mobile sits squarely in the path of Gulf hurricanes, systems that can drop 10, 15, even 20 inches of rain in a matter of days. Even storms that don't make direct landfall send enormous bands of rain across the Gulf Coast, adding to Mobile's already staggering annual totals. The lush greenery visible throughout the city is no accident. Mobile's landscape, the Spanish moss draped from live oaks, the dense subtropical vegetation, the perpetually green lawns, is the direct product of a city that has been soaked by rain for centuries. The land looks the way it does because of the water, and the water never really stops coming. Mobile's rainfall isn't an isolated phenomenon. It's the most visible point of one of the most rain-soaked geographic regions in North America, what climate scientists and meteorologists informally call the Gulf Coast Rain Belt. To understand why this entire region is so wet, you need to understand what the Gulf of Mexico actually does to the atmosphere above it. Unlike the Pacific Ocean off Seattle's coast, which is cool, deep, and partially blocked by mountain ranges before its moisture reaches cities, the Gulf of Mexico is warm, shallow, and has virtually no barriers between its surface and the cities on its northern shore. Think of the Gulf as a humidifier the size of a sea. It is constantly pumping warm, moisture-laden air northward. When that air encounters any kind of atmospheric trigger, a cold front moving down from Canada, a low-pressure system spinning in from the Atlantic, a simple afternoon heating cycle in summer, it dumps its moisture as rain. And because the Gulf is so vast and so warm, there is seemingly always more moisture where that came from. This is why Louisiana is the rainiest state in the continental United States. It is why Florida and Alabama rank right behind it. It is why cities like Houston, which most people think of as a hot, dry Texas city, regularly receives nearly 50 inches of rain per year and has some of the most severe flooding events of any major American city. The geography also explains the nature of Gulf Coast rain versus Pacific Northwest rain. Gulf storms tend to be intense and fast. Heavy thunderstorms that drop large amounts of water in short periods. A Gulf Coast city might receive 2 inches of rain in a 2-hour afternoon thunderstorm, and then have sunny skies by evening. Seattle's rain, by contrast, falls slowly and persistently over many hours or days, rarely reaching the intensity of a Gulf thunderstorm, but never fully stopping either. Both are genuinely wet climates, but they feel completely different, and that difference in feel is a huge part of why the Gulf Coast's rainfall goes unacknowledged, while Seattle's drizzle dominates the cultural imagination. The Seattle rainfall myth is not just a weather story. It is a story about how human beings form beliefs, and why the way something feels is almost always more powerful than what the data actually says. Seattle's rain is psychologically exhausting in a way that Mobile's rain is not. When it rains in Mobile, you know it. It comes down hard. The gutters fill up. There might be thunder, and then it's over. The event has a beginning and an end. You can emotionally process it as a weather event and move on. Seattle's rain has no beginning and no end. It is a condition rather than an event. You wake up and it's gray. You go to lunch and it's drizzling. You leave work and the clouds are still there. You go to bed to the sounds of light rain on the roof. Days of this accumulate into weeks, and weeks into months. The sun may not be visible for stretches that feel genuinely disorienting. Psychologists who study seasonal affective disorder, the depression that many people experience during long periods of low sunlight, have found that it's not the volume of rain that affects mood. It's the consistency of cloud cover and the absence of sunlight. Seattle, which averages only about 152 sunny days per year, is one of the least sunny major cities in America. Miami, by comparison, gets over 250 sunny days per year, even though it gets far more rain. So the lived experience in Seattle genuinely does feel rainier than almost anywhere else, even though the data says otherwise. The feeling is real. The reputation that grew from that feeling is understandable, but reputation is not the same as reality. This matters beyond rainfall statistics. Americans make enormous decisions about where to live, where to work, where to retire, where to invest, based on perceptions of places that are often built on decades-old pop culture impressions, rather than current data. The story of Seattle's rain myth is a small example of a much larger pattern. The places we think we know are often very different from the places that actually exist. We've established that Mobile is the rainiest city in the continental United States. But the continental United States is not the whole story. If you include Hawaii and Alaska, the numbers get almost incomprehensible. Hilo, Hawaii, a city of about 45,000 people on the Big Island, receives an average of roughly 127 inches of rain per year. That is nearly double Mobile's total, nearly triple Seattle's. Hilo sits on the windward side of the Big Island, where moisture-laden specific trade winds are forced upward by the massive volcanic peaks of Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. As that air rises and cools, it dumps its moisture over Hilo with extraordinary regularity. The city's streets are flanked by lush tropical vegetation so dense, it looks like a jungle is perpetually trying to reclaim the sidewalks. And Hilo isn't even close to the wettest spot in the United States. That distinction belongs to Mount Waialeale on the island of Kauai, one of the wettest points on the entire surface of the Earth. Mount Waialeale averages around 450 inches of rain per year. That is 37 feet. The mountain's summit is so consistently cloud-covered that it effectively generates its own weather system. There are years when it receives more than 600 inches. There are spans of days where it does not see sunlight at all. In Alaska, Ketchikan, a small city in the southeast panhandle, averages around 153 inches of rain per year, making it one of the wettest cities in North America. Ketchikan sits on a narrow coastal strip between the Pacific Ocean and the coast mountains, in a temperate rainforest zone where moisture rolls in almost continuously from the Gulf of Alaska. The city receives so much rain that locals have developed an entire culture around it. Rain gear is not optional. It is a social norm. And the city's annual Rainbird Festival celebrates rather than laments the endless precipitation. Compared to these places, Seattle's 39 inches of annual rainfall is practically a desert, and Mobile's 67 inches, while genuinely impressive, is just the beginning of the wet end of the American spectrum. So what does all of this actually tell us about the United States? It tells us that America's climate geography is almost perfectly inverted from the way most Americans imagine it. The wet places are not in the Northwest. They're in the Southeast and the Gulf Coast. The dry places are not in the Southwest Desert. Well, actually, those are dry. That part is right. But the Pacific Northwest, which in the cultural imagination is synonymous with rain and gloom, is actually one of the milder, lower precipitation zones in the country when you measure it by total volume. It tells us that the Gulf of Mexico is one of the most powerful climate forces in North America, a vast, warm, shallow body of water that acts as a moisture engine for an enormous portion of the continent, soaking the states along its northern shore year after year. The Gulf's influence on American weather is second only to the Pacific Ocean, and in some ways more direct, because there are no mountain ranges between the Gulf and the cities on its coast to intercept and reduce its moisture before it arrives. And it tells us that geography shapes not just where it rains, but how it rains, and that how rain falls shapes how people experience and perceive it, sometimes more powerfully than the actual volume of water coming down. Seattle's gray, persistent drizzle shaped a culture, a music scene, a city's entire identity. Mobile's heavy thunderstorms shaped lush vegetation, flood control infrastructure, and an architecture built around the reality of living with serious water. Both are responses to rainfall. Both are real. They just look completely different, and only one of them became famous for it. So the next time someone tells you Seattle is America's rainiest city, you can hand them the data. 39 inches per year, 32nd out of the 50 largest American cities. Less rain than New York, less rain than Atlanta, less rain than Nashville, and less than half the rain of Mobile, Alabama. The actual, factual, data-backed rainiest city in the United States. The myth was built by music, movies, drizzle, and decades of unchecked repetition. And now you know the real story. While we do our best to provide you with the most accurate information, these are, after all, just our take based on data and research we analyzed. Weather varies year to year. You should always check current climate data for wherever you're planning to visit or move. Subscribe if you haven't already. We put out new videos every week, digging into the geography, the data, and the hidden stories behind the way places look and feel. And if you liked this video, share it with someone who still thinks Seattle is the rainiest city in America, because now you can prove them wrong. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.